Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video there is a link to get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by 10th Man, Brian's Logic, Arwin, Neil, who else we got in there? John, father of a stolen child, I should say, and a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome, one and all.
Good morning.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Good morning.
Good morning. Nice enthusiastic start. We do a bit of housekeeping. We all keen?
Of course.
Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge, horizon formerly known as Earth curvature?
Still quiet from the ballers. Black Swan took care of that.
It exists in the terrestrial model.
That's
They
nice.
don't even acknowledge the black swan, so
Well, they acknowledge
yes,
it.
they do.
They acknowledge it.
Yeah, Neil, but their rebuttal is they're still white swans, so...
But there's still horizons we can assert as physical and geometric, even though you've demonstrated that the horizon's not physical and geometric. That's wonderful. What a great rebuttal.
Isn't it?
Yeah, all the rest are white. you're missing the point, geniuses.
Yeah, exactly. You only need one non-geometric horizon to make the assertion that the horizon's not geometric, and their rebuttal is, well, no, it's not geometric. Well, a geometric horizon's Earth curve. So they're in a way saying it's not Earth curve, because it isn't Earth curve.
Well, it's their problem, and they don't want to deal with it because it's too hot now. If you're going to have Earth curve as part of your globe, which they do, then we have to go back to what you've addressed it as. It's the thing that the boats and buildings get obstructed by. So this is why the ship is disappearing, bottom up, and buildings are disappearing bottom up. Why? Earth curve. Oh, great. Well, how big is your globe, and what's your radius, and where should that Earth curve start at different elevations as we, view it? Oh, it should be here. Oh, good. Well, how come it's not there? What are you talking about?
Hey, Tony.
well, it's working. It's working because my daughter, I have two grown daughters, and she knows I'm into the flat Earth, but she saw a picture, one of these pictures that NASA put up, and she just thought about it and said it doesn't even make sense. Like, how can we be on this ball and I'll never see it? Like, she's putting things together now. So just the flat Earth being out there and people hearing about it, it's going to start taking a deeper effect, I believe.
Do a quick sound check
fixed your
with Tony,
exhaust?
as he tends to be mega loud. Go ahead, Tony.
Have you fixed your exhaust?
On the way.
En route to doing it.
What was that? Was that a yes or a no?
En route to doing it, he said.
Oh, he's en route to doing it. Right, feather that throttle when you're talking then.
I
Hey,
definitely
listen, he
appreciate
didn't.
subject.
He hasn't fixed his exhaust, but he's
hello,
tired of talking about it.
Hello, running a live show about the nature of our reality. Hello,
I had a good pun there.
What question are we on?
we're at first question. Definitely nowhere near talking about Neil's exhaust, that's for damn sure. No offence, Neil.
He has got a massive exhaust though.
Ah,
What about the water coming in? I got
No,
exhaust
literally-
and water, so
See what
anyway,
you did,
I'm on
Anthony?
move.
Any evidence you
Don't
can
get
have
Neil going.
gas pressure, not exhaust pressure, gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
Hell no.
I'm exhausted about this question because they just don't seem to-
Exhausted.
I was just going to say that.
Jesus,
ball-
bro.
the ballers just don't have a good comeback for this. I'm exhausted by it.
Just full of hot air, you tenth with all these one-liners.
You sound kind of muffled there, Tim. What's going
Yeah,
on?
I'm a bit tired, exhausted.
Not muffled, not muffled.
I got you. I got the muffin.
Get them all out.
You do
come on.
realise that Nathan's
Get 'em all out,
by
get 'em all out.
the way, Nathan, there's no evidence for gas pressure without a container. It's a cycle law thermodynamics violation.
Oh,
There we go.
Chocolate sensed that tone in my voice, I can tell. Thank you, Chocolate.
I'll change it too, don't worry.
Excellent. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
I always have sensors in my exhaust telling me things. No
Okay.
axial rotation, but of the Earth type.
Fairly packed Discord server.
Well, we
Evidence of
couldn't even
axial
get them
rotation?
to get out of chat in the pre-show, so maybe they'll come and talk now, hopefully.
Speaking of exhaust, can I pipe up?
Oh, we weren't speaking of
Wow.
exhaust. We were in the pre-show. That's, for the pre-show. Anyway, back to the live show. Any evidence of
Yeah.
axial rotation?
None whatsoever.
Any evidence of a
Nothing at all.
self-perpetuating? Go on, whoever that was from Discord.
Nothing. Absolutely no evidence at all.
Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
No, because it's a presupposed spherical Earth that they haven't even shown to be real. So how could there be that in the middle of it?
P waves and S waves, in it.
What's that?
I don't know, but it sounds good when I say it, so it's true.
P waves and S waves sound good?
Yeah, primary waves and secondary waves are not possible on a flat Earth, apparently, according to certain teachers.
Well, could
But
somebody
it's-
explain how that works? P waves and
What's-
S waves?
No, I just make the assertion that they're impossible on a flat plane, so therefore that's good enough.
Have you proven it's something other than a flat plane?
No, but this technology
Oh, okay.
wouldn't exist. This technology wouldn't exist if it wasn't. I read it in my books.
Oh, like glasses and stuff, right?
Yeah.
They
Did you
begin
take-
all inquiries with the assumption that we're on a ball.
Yes, that's correct.
Of course.
Was that measurement taken from a flat plane?
Yeah, it will have been. And then
I can
converted
infer
using a geodesic
yes
plane.
as the answer, regardless of what the question is. Yes, it will have been measured on a flat plane, John.
So then it was possible on a flat Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they come
It
on
has-
they come on property in the woods, when it's not the city streets where they know where all the pipes are, and they have a device similar to that, and they can find all your electrical lines and your water lines bouncing something off of the dirt they're walking on. So it does work on the flat plane.
Well,
Has P waves and S waves, have they been actually verified, or are they like unicorns, like bending a space time and stuff like that?
It's not that
No,
they
I got
haven't been
water
verified.
pipes. I got electrical lines buried.
All right, well, that would be interesting to like look into how it could work on a FE, right?
It does work on a flat Earth because for them to find out if they're going to dig or build something, they got to find out do you have any water lines or electrical lines going through where they're going to dig. So it works. So it works
so
on a
how-
flat plane.
So how are they strawmanning the position so it doesn't work on an FE?
No, that's just an excuse. It does work on an FE, and they're saying it's a presupposition of a globe, and so they just wrap it around that story of theirs.
They try and say that they know what will happen at the other side of the globe by, let's say, using P waves and S waves at any particular point or whatever. You know, this kind of thing. It's like the globe tells them what's going to happen, kind of thing. That's basically the rhetoric. So they will say it can't be a flat Earth if they can know what's happening, if they can get information about the other side of the globe.
The other side.
Yeah, they haven't proved one side yet, but the other side, you know.
They don't even have a geometric horizon.
Yeah.
The problem I have with that statement of, oh, this wouldn't work on a flat plane is you haven't proven it's something other than that. So, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. Thanks.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen any one of these guys say, hey, I just spotted a pipe in China.
If unicorns were imaginary, then entropy wouldn't work.
That's the logic, John.
Yeah, that's the logic they're using.
Well, look, let's get down to the brass tacks, right? They use P waves and S waves supposedly to predict earthquakes. Now, if they were very, very precise, then we wouldn't have places having earthquakes without any warning. Someone would have to tell them there's going to be an earthquake here. Do you know what I mean? So that doesn't happen. Earthquakes still do happen without any warning. But they build buildings with damper systems, high-rise buildings with damper systems, to help during really like bad weather like hurricanes and during earthquakes, which is movement of the earth underneath the building. But during times when there isn't earthquakes, or let's just say, or typhoons or whatever, these damper systems stay totally stationary. So if you work it out, if the earth is moving, how come a damper system can stay stationary? Can't.
Check it out. I still had my picture of me next to the Type A 101 damper system in the Skype messages, so I've actually had it on screen for your discussion this time. Moving on. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
No. If you can't see it, does it still exist?
Well, any evidence of parallel rays, that would be, because they would be a byproduct of a massive distance to the sun that's stated by the opposition.
Sure,
No
sticks
parallel
and shadows.
rays. Sorry, John.
Well, shadows show parallel rays.
Yeah, if you believe hard enough.
Well, you're not going to believe and find yourself in a third position, are you? You're not going to find yourself looking at the side of your own head, or looking at yourself stood on a claim to be spherical Earth with the sun on the right and the Earth on the left, and parallel rays between the two.
No, I don't guess so.
I think the question, any evidence of parallel sun rays, is actually a pretty good question, and it's up to you, Nathan. But I think that could be a good housekeeping question because it's very pertinent to the argument, is it not?
It would be great if you've got to, obviously can't segue away from the main topic. The reason we're asking for parallel sun rays is because there's a claim to be distant to the sun, and the claim to be distant to the sun is based on the R value. So any evidence of the distance to the sun, if it was met every day with a response of, well, any evidence of parallel light rays, I'd be more happy than hearing, no offence, Arwin, but any evidence that it's still there when you can't see it. Parallel light rays is much more on topic, if you know what I mean.
Well, if you think about the claim is that Eratosthenes, this is from the ballers, I'm not saying it's from Eratosthenes himself, it's from the ballers, that Eratosthenes measured the radius, right, with shadow angles, right? And these shadow angles, he was able to measure the radius because of parallel sun rays. Now, we know that the sun rays are not parallel, and the only way that the opposition can assert parallel sun rays is to start with an actual radius that creates a globe, and then the pre-assumption of a radius that creates a pre-assumed globe that pre-assumes that Venus is the same size, is another same size globe at a particular distance, and that the sun then is an even bigger globe at a particular distance. So these parallel sun rays all start with a pre-assumption of an R value, yet they're the very thing that's supposed to prove the R value. So is that not classic circular reasoning?
There's actually another way to show parallel sun rays. If you
before
get
you
two
do,
sticks and put them
before you do though, can you just answer his question though? Because I don't want to leave it as a rhetorical question. Just repeat the question. Feel free for someone else to answer it and then move on, John. But you know, just repeat the end of your last statement, please, Brian.
Yeah, is that not the exact example of circular reasoning?
Yes.
Do you want me to add more detail?
It would be if you couldn't show parallel sun rays.
And can we show parallel sun rays?
No.
Well, if you put two sticks in the ground 10 foot apart, you can't measure a deviation between the shadows.
But can
That's not the race.
That's not the race.
No. Listen to his question again. Can you see parallel? Full stop.
No.
Right. The guy who was on the other day, admittedly, he was here to defend incoherent dielectric acceleration, but he made that point. And more power to him. Is like, well, you can't possibly. I think he described it as curved linear. I'd have to look into whether or not that's an accurate description of what he's describing. I mean, Arwin's strapped that on a couple of times to perspective, and I've got to be honest, I can't remember how he described it, so I can't remember the description of what curved linear means in this context. And ultimately, we're talking about perspective in that regard, right? But can you see it? No, you can't. It's beyond your capabilities to see it. Well, for them to have it described in that way, they have to represent it orthographically to draw it that way. You're never going to see it that way. It's impossible. It's like saying, how are you going to see something in the distance at the same physical feet and inches value? Well, you can't. It will always get smaller further away. That's what it does. So to take that effect away from what you're actually seeing, you've got to put it in a different position. It's the same with parallel light rays. But it is circular reasoning to assume that you can acquire them in order to measure various values of the sphere you're presuming is definitely the textbook definition of circular reasoning, Brian. Just wanted to round that out as it was a good point. Anyway, go ahead, John. Sorry to cut you off right at the beginning.
Right. Well, the shadows thing is how they say it's not circular reasoning, because you can't measure a deviation between the shadows. But we don't really know what's going on there. That's the whole point of that. We're just seeing shadows.
That's a trick. I'll tell you what. Move those sticks further apart, what happens? Move those sticks closer together, what happens? It still doesn't answer the question. The question is, do you see parallel sun rays?
Well, see, that's the trick, though, because there's no way you being in your position can measure a deviation between those shadows because of the scale you're talking about. That's why Rumpus says it's not 0.5. It's because you would have to, be in two places at once.
Right, but the question is, do you see parallel sun rays? No, we see crepuscular sun rays.
See them diverging.
That's correct.
Or if you want to consider they're moving towards the sun, then converging towards the sun.
Well, 10th Man is exactly right in the sense that you see when you look at the sun, which is the only place where it really exists as a thing, you see crepuscular rays. Thing is, though, that if you do put sticks in the ground and you put it, let's just say, a couple of 100 miles apart, you make sure that you have very competent camera systems to keep track of each other's location, right, in a direct sense, that, the shadow is not going to be in the same place. Because
Even-
a shadow, as is all the light apparition, is unique to the observer. So there is no position of the sun. Not close, not far away. It's purely an apparition.
in
How
spite
would
of
you
that,
get an
Arwin,
objective direction to know that?
I'm not going to try and defend that I do know the answer to what Arwin's stating is correct. He's not wrong. But in terms of the imagery that we do have when we've got high altitude balloon footage of the sun, it's still producing the same effect, even when you're looking at it what could be considered side on with the ground below and the sun above, and then it's got a hot spot on the clouds, lines coming out of it in the same way we see it on the ground. So it looks local. It certainly doesn't produce parallel lines when you see it from that vantage point. Quite the contrary. It's producing a hot spot below it, but it's definitely not doing what they say it does.
Right.
But
because-
shadows are.
But why? Because every time we see the sun, it's always a point. It's a point in visual space in our sight. A point. The light always comes from a point when it concerns the sun, right? So it's bound to always spread out circular in some way, no matter what, no matter the perspective.
Indeed, and it does. That's precisely what it does, as far as we can tell, as far as we can see, and as far as we have been shown.
What is the antecedent of a shadow? It's light, isn't it? You won't see a shadow in a dark room, but you see the shadow when you have light. Now, if the sun is obscured at your location, if the sun is obscured by grey cloud, you can still see a shadow. So it's light that causes a shadow. Light is the cause of shadow. Yeah, there's light coming off the sun, but when we see the sun rays, they're coming in at angle. They're coming out from a point, diverging positions. So light, you can cause the same shadows just with light, without having to be able to see the sun on a cloudy day. So,
But can you measure between, let's say, two sticks 20 foot apart? Can you measure any divergence from parallel in the shadows?
yeah, but 20 foot apart. How far apart can you make them, and they will still stay exactly the same? How far could you bring them apart?
That's my
How
point.
far could you measure it?
No, that's my point.
It's on the vein of, I know Tent about to say, on the vein of what Tent said. Same thing. If you bring those sticks 1,000 foot apart, will they have two exactly the same shadows angles, or will the shadow angles be different?
Nope.
No, but he's put them 20 foot apart, and you haven't answered him.
Yeah, if you put
I'll
20 foot
answer.
apart. Go on, Tent. Go on.
No, I'm sending you a picture. I'll answer it right now. Put it up.
A real picture. Okay. Well, I
Yeah,
don't
is
know
that
if
20 foot
qualifies,
apart or
but
more?
I'll stick it up anyway.
What's that?
I don't know if this qualifies. There's no sticks in it.
No, my point is when it's at your zenith position, 20 foot apart is not going to do a shadow because it's directly above you. And that's the whole point. When it's directly above you, there is no shadow or very little to even pick up. That's your highest altitude of the light source. That's your 90 degree. So when it's at 90 degree, where do you have to get 89, 88 before you see a shadow? So the whole point is 10 feet apart is nothing because it's directly above you. What shadow?
Well, we'd need to know
Well,
how
my
big
whole
this
point.
hotspot exactly as I described earlier. I mean, you can see what they're doing. They're coming away from each other. Just that's visually obvious. So how big's this circle? Who knows?
Well, well, it's definitely more than 10 feet apart. That's for sure.
Well, yeah, but just so. I mean, I'm looking at that going, it could be a 100-mile area, it could be a 10-mile area. But either way, when you scale it up to 1,000, you're at the point where you go, yeah, okay, we're definitely going to see a difference.
All
There you go.
right. So the next picture I sent you.
Up.
Yeah, voila. There you go. Here's your corpuscular rays. Here's your divergent light. And if you're standing right under the light source, you're not going to have a shadow. And if I'm a human being and say my width is 2 feet, well, at least for 2 feet, I'm not going to have a shadow. And if I have
Are you saying you could replicate this in something as simple as, let's say, I don't know, my bedroom?
probably with a flashlight.
Does that prove that my bedroom's a ball?
I guess it would.
Ah,
I don't think y'all are
There we go.
understanding.
It might be
my
concave,
objection.
Chocolate.
Adam,
definitely
Like,
like a
anything that
concave bedroom.
one more
Anything
try.
that you do in your bedroom will be with a physical light source. We don't know that the sun's that. That was my point in this.
Fair
We don't know
point.
what the sun's doing.
Yeah, but their dollars argument is 10-foot apart sticks, no shadow. So there's no divergent rays. When every time you look out, you see divergent rays. It's just they're changing the argument to sticks when it's the zenith position of the light source and trying to get you off of the divergent light rays, which is where they don't want you to go. Doesn't make any sense.
It would be impossible to see. Sorry, John. Go on.
It's the way that they look at those light rays and create models of it is the problem.
Well, they only
they
look
don't
at
know.
one source. They only look at one type of light rays for their model, and it's parallel, and that's not what we see in reality, and that's why we're debunking it.
But then I can argue that the shadows that we perceive are parallel, which you can't recreate with a local light source.
The shadows aren't parallel because the light source is at an angle when it's hitting it to create the shadow, and that's the altitude or angle that you're getting.
I can measure parallel shadows in my yard, is what I'm saying.
Didn't we just cover this? Am I having deja vu or what?
I think so.
What's going on, John?
I think it's easier just to. I think it's just easier to say we don't know what the sun is.
We're not even
Well, we
talking
do
about
say that.
We do say
But
that.
we did say that.
You're saying if I scale it down close
No,
enough, they look parallel. Okay. And then we covered it and showed that they're clearly not. And within, I said between 10 and 100 miles, you could definitely show, contrary to what you're now asserting again, it's a bit like you're chanting. What gives? What's going on?
Well, if you get to the 10 or 100 miles, then they can introduce their Earth curve.
So,
Well, that's one of the tricks they use to introduce it.
They can't even
good.
produce Earth. They can't even produce
Well-
Earth curve at 1.22 miles.
Oh, it's not. It's rotation they'll introduce, because this rotation gives us the sunrise and sunset, so they can introduce rotation. That's what they'll try and do at that point.
it can introduce a lot of
No,
things,
that's
right?
Eratosthenes. Eratosthenes is claiming curvature with his sticks.
No, he's briefing.
Yeah, but it's rotation that gives us a position.
You brought this up. No, he's presupposing he's on a sphere when he does this. And his measurements will include R.
I know. I was just saying to John that it's rotation. Rotation is on the globe model. The sun's position in the sky is not due to the movement of the sun. It's due to the movement of the Earth. This is backward from reality. That's my point. I don't worry. I'm not going against my original point. That's 100% right.
Moving on. Any evidence of the R value, Earth radius?
Nope. Just assumed.
Black Swan killed that too.
Well, if there was evidence, it would be a curved surface showing up at 1.22 miles at a 1 foot observer height.
Indeed.
Then it would just be there, right? And we wouldn't have to talk about how it's not there all day.
That's right.
That'd be great, right?
Chocolate. Kiwi said there's 7 horizons.
In their world, there's more.
Really?
Yeah, he was referencing what they say.
That's
He wasn't
funny
saying
because
that.
all of them, I think all of them, except for the two that were described, that were defined as imaginary, they're all defined as the visible horizon, aren't they?
Right.
Oh, so we can't have a horizon that is not visible, right? That would actually be opposite of what horizon means, right?
Correct. We only have one horizon, and the horizon in the geometric, physical, begging the question, proof of nothing Earth curve calculator is physical and geometric. It's called Earth curve. It's claimed to block boats and buildings. It's their tangent point. And we've debunked it. We only have one horizon, and the horizon is not geometric. The horizon is not Earth curve.
Then what is it?
non-physical apparent location where the sky meets the ground or sea.
Neil, it's what happens when you live on a plane and your perspective and the vanishing point and convergence, that's where it is, but it's not there because if you go towards it, it keeps moving away from you.
Yeah, and it's also caused by looking through the medium. So if you're living on a flat plane, looking out towards because they always think that you should see the Eiffel Tower from New York. Well, obviously, if you're looking over that level of distance and it goes into a bleak, murky mess because we're looking into the horizon, then that's what you would expect to see.
But why can we see stars if we look straight up? Ain't they farther than the horizon?
Only if you've got a physical assumption bias. But Anthony's point stands. You can't see the Eiffel Tower from New York because it's too small. Now, they assert that you should see it on a flat plane because their representation of the world is orthographic, ignoring perspective. So in that representation, without a curve getting in the way, you've got a clear line of sight for anything in the distance and it remains its feet and inches value as per the Earth curve calculator. Therefore, you should still see the Eiffel Tower based on an orthographic representation. Now, because they don't realise that they have taken perspective and called it Earth curve, therefore removing perspective, the idiots that think they're on a sphere ask us why we can't see the Eiffel Tower from New York. Well, because it's too small, clown show. And your maths doesn't include that. Your maths calls it Earth curve.
Yeah, they
I could go with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could go with that. But when they start saying the atmosphere and there's certain things where your vision can see because of stuff in the atmosphere. Yeah, I know, but this is what my son tells me. He says, "Why can I look straight up in the air and see stars, but I can't look straight ahead and see the Eiffel Tower?"
Well, he's ignoring perspective and he's got a physical assumption bias about the stars. He's also assuming that the air we reside in is sphere-shaped and sits in violation of natural law, so that we can have a sky vacuum. Well, that's a whole string of things that he's got problem with his question of you that all need pointing out to him.
Well,
how does gas go on, Chant?
No, I just posted the other day that in the navigation for the use of the sextant, they don't even shoot any stars, anything that's 10 degrees above the horizon because of the density of the air and all the particulates in the air, just like Anthony was saying. You can't get a precise reading, let alone see them. So they always say aim higher, 15, 20 degrees and higher is much better because you don't have all of the refraction issues and all the particulates that block things.
So you're saying your vision is different if you look straight up as opposed to looking straight ahead?
Well, if you're looking straight ahead through a bunch of stuff that's going to block it, of course.
Well, it's also limited by angle. So if you're looking over the deck straight ahead, as you're looking ahead, the deck itself limits the angle of view. So anything on the deck that you're looking at, you have a very limited angle to it. Whereas if you're looking straight up, there's nothing limiting the angle. So the angular resolution is going to be purely based on the size of the item you're looking at. Whereas when you look over the deck itself limits the angle. Therefore, you have things disappearing from bottom up because the deck's limiting the angle to the bottom of the thing that you're seeing in the distance. Therefore, it vanishes first, due to the limited angle over the deck. Not so when you're up in the sky looking down, you've got a really wide angle to the ground, and not so when you're on the ground looking up. There's nothing limiting the angle looking up either. So it's a combination of things. If you want an in-depth, very, very carefully constructed and well-researched explanation for this, check out Life is Short and his presentation that he originally did on Ranty Flat Earth Show, and I chunked out into 3 hour-long or 4, I think it might have even been 5 hour-long videos where he describes this. Foreshortening, perspective, angular resolution limits, all of these things he dissected in great detail and explained precisely how they worked, with visual representations and photographs to go alongside them. So you can get a good grip on how these things work. All of them are ignored in the begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking curve calculator, because it's side on, and no matter what distance the target you're looking at is, it remains the same feet and inches or meters value. So a 10-foot wall is a 10-foot wall regardless of if it's 1,000,000 miles away. And if you draw that represented in orthographic view, you have the observer on the left. That would imply that you're seeing the side of your own head. And then the target on the right. And the target will have 10 foot assigned to it. Now, if the line between them is flat, there's just a line between them that you can write 1 million miles on and claim that you should see it. Well, in reality, we haven't got only a orthographic representation of a curve stopping us from seeing things in the distance. They get smaller. On screen now, these wind turbines are getting smaller with distance. Now, that effect has been called Earth curve.
Don't forget Rayleigh criteria.
That is perspective. That's the calculation of the angular resolution limit. Where the diffraction will occur is calculable in the Rayleigh criterion based on the size. Now, like on screen now, when you've got a side-on view, if I've got this house without an angular representation, I write 30 feet on the side of this house. But on the line, I write 5 million miles. Well, you can see it, right? It's still the same size. Doesn't matter that it's 5 million miles between the target and the observer. Well, yes, it does, because the actual house will be so tiny that it can't be seen. It's too small. Calculable in the Rayleigh criterion. The diffraction limit.
It's looked all over the place.
Say again, you're a bit quiet.
I went through this with somebody at my job this morning, when a newer coworker I got, and he understood this in 5 minutes. He was just like, "Oh, because the angle at the bottom is the smallest, so that's why it would disappear first." I'm like, "Yeah." It's like, "Oh shit, I never thought of it like that."
If someone will play along, it gives me a chance to go through it with my building a skyscraper example and a brick. Who wants to play along?
I'll do it.
Go ahead. I had John first. Right, John. So if I take a brick and put it at 500 yards, can you see it? 8-inch brick.
I would think so, maybe.
Okay. If I take the same exact brick and put it at 2 miles away, so it's now right on the horizon, can you still see it? Or is it too small?
I guess it'd be too small.
Okay, you guess it'd be too small. What about if I put it at 3 miles then? Can you still see an 8-inch brick if it's 3 miles away with your naked eye?
Oh, definitely not.
Okay, so we're going to say a brick at 3 miles has vanished from view because it is too small. It has reached and breached the angular resolution limit of your eyeball. Therefore, cannot be resolved, cannot be seen. It has disappeared into the horizon because it's so small. Now I take the same exact location for both target and observer. 3 miles, brick's already disappeared. But I'm going to build a 100-foot skyscraper on top of the brick that's disappeared. Can you see the 100-foot skyscraper at 3 miles?
Oh, of course.
So you can see the skyscraper, but the brick at the bottom is still too small to see.
That's Earth curve?
So therefore, this building in the distance at 3 miles, according to this very crude example, has vanished to the tune of 8 inches. So it looks like 8 inches are missing off the bottom of the building. Not because the building's actually gone over some physical reified sphere edge horizon, but because at the horizon the angle is so limited that the 8-inch brick is too small to see, but the rest of the angle moving up into the sky with the skyscraper is wider and can be seen. So you have a building that's disappeared from bottom first merely because the bottom angle is too small. Now that effect is perspective, angular resolution limits, and foreshortening. As I say, see Life is Short's lengthy description for a more in-depth understanding of this. But that effect is called Earth curve. When you remove all aspects of perspective and turn the view side on so that the target doesn't change with distance. So you can say 8 inches have gone from the bottom of the building, when in reality, the bottom of the building has a very limited angle to it. And that is why it's disappeared. But if you remove that factor and just say 8 inches has disappeared, well, 8 inches doesn't change at distance. 8 inches is the same whether it's right in front of your face, blocking your view of everything, or 3 miles away, completely disappeared because it's so small. In other words, 8 inches doesn't give you enough information to qualify why it's disappeared, when angular resolution limits can cause things to disappear because they're too small to see. Hijacked and called Earth curve.
Yeah, and at 1 mile, that 8-inch brick won't be seen. And how you know that to be true is the Earth curve calculation says that at 1 mile there's an 8-inch drop. There's not an 8-inch drop. It's that anything that's 8 inches, 8 inches off the floor of anything will have disappeared due to angular resolution at that rate or at that distance.
Yeah, what is it, 1.22 over lambda? I can never remember the actual Rayleigh criteria in maths, but it's very similar to the Earth curve mathematics at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. Well, you can work out the angular resolution of something, and it's a very similar number.
That's right.
Yeah, that 8-inch drop.
Flat Earth Data talks about this a lot. And it is almost exact. I think it's 1.22 something. It's nearly exact. It's basically exact, more or less, almost.
Yeah, they've hijacked perspective and called it Earth curve.
Yeah, I think that's a better answer. Sorry.
Go on, John.
I was going to say they've hijacked perspective and called it Earth curve is a better answer than to talk about the drop that we don't see, because that's just a way for them to squirm in a physical horizon. They'll smuggle it in any way they can.
Well, we do see bottom-up concealment, but yeah, this also happens on confirmed measured flat surfaces. So it's indeed optics inherent and not just due to physical obstruction.
John, did you just say they tried to smuggle in Earth curve?
Yeah, what we're detailing is the obstruction at the horizon. So when they say 8 inches is missing off the bottom of the skyscraper, in my example, what's causing the 8 inches to be missing in the first instance, according to their maths? Well, a physical geometric sphere edge horizon tangent point, formerly known as Earth curve.
Well, that's why when he said it, here we are, 18, 19 months, whatever it's been, asking them, now John's saying they're trying to smuggle it in, but we can't even get them to talk about it. And then when they do, they say we've never seen it to measure it, but we got it measured. So I'm not sure about the smuggling in of Earth curve when they're avoiding it.
A couple of quick shout outs. I missed out one. It's now dropped off the list as well, so I can't rewind the chat far enough to get the other James Richard super chat. But it says, Nathan, I did it again. Another super chat to tell you that you missed a super chat. Thank you very much indeed. I can't scroll back to read it either. Sorry. Thank you very much if you've been smashing the super chat.
Right. But it's no use trying to make the sphere edge illegal because they're just going to smuggle it on the black market anyway. You know?
Well, what they did is they give the impression that the 8 inches per mile square comes from a radius value, right? And you can work it that way. But you could also work it the other way, that the 8 inches per mile square comes from perspective and they work the radius value off of that. Because either way, it's pre-assuming.
Yeah, and for Arwen, there's no white swans on the black market.
I don't know.
Oh.
Hey, Nate.
I think everything that's made
things.
illegal finds its way to the black market, you know? So even if the globe were to become illegal, people are just going to secretly be the globe resistance in a world that's no longer tolerant of their truth.
Good subject. We'll get into the aftermath of the discovery of flat Earth afterwards, after housekeeping. Go on, Chocolate. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, speaking about things disappearing due to the angle and angular resolution, you want to play something? And I put it in, I forgot where I put it. Master B and Ballbusters, maybe?
Yeah, sure.
I don't know. Haven't we got an outstanding housekeeping question?
Got two. Any evidence?
Well, let's go on. Let's come back to chocolates in a minute because I'm waiting for one of them.
Okay.
Let you talk, bro. they can't help
Indio, unorthodox Indio.
Oh, that was India?
That was the content.
Yeah, that was Indio.
Unorthodox in Indio. Unorthodox in Indio.
Yeah.
So, how does a boat disappear in 500 feet when the globe model predicts the horizon is 2,600 feet away? So, what's blocking the boat if it's not at the horizon yet?
see anything blocking the boat. I see the resolution. I see the camera being unable to resolve the boat.
Welcome to Flat Earth.
Welcome to Flat Earth, my friend. Snacks to the back, bathrooms to the left, DJs taking requests, and smoke them if you got them. Welcome.
Epic.
That's classic.
Yeah, so in other words, when presented with the problem of something disappearing in the exact same fashion that the Earth curve calculator asserts it's going to disappear when it gets a blockage by way of an orthographic view of a represented physical horizon now debunked by the Black Swan, they would say, well, if it happens prior to where the Earth curve calculator, well, then it's optical, even though the calculator itself doesn't account for that. But prior to the calculator kicking in with orthographic representations that only have feet in inches or meters represented as the target, I'm going to say that it's optical because it's happened before, even though it's the same effect. Welcome to Flat Earth.
Exactly. Yep, that's why we're talking
What was his response to that?
We get to hear the response.
What? Welcome to Flat Earth?
Yeah, what did he say? I mean, did he crawl in a hole?
He couldn't. You hear what he said?
Yeah.
The globe curvature couldn't even be a factor in that boat that he was just shown disappearing. So when asked, why is this boat disappearing if this has nothing to do with your curvature? And you heard what he said, right? He sees the boat disappearing because the camera can't resolve the angle. Yeah. That's why we all told him, welcome to Flat Earth, bro. That's our argument. Thanks.
Resolution. I see the camera being unable to resolve the boat.
Welcome to Flat Earth.
Welcome to Flat Earth, my friend. Snack.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. They implicitly understand this stuff because they've had it detailed to them by us. And prior to this embarrassing little situation, they would call it flurfspective when we asserted that this exact same effect, now detailed by a globe believer as being an optical effect, they would say, no, it's flurfspective when you point out things disappear when they're too small. But when it happens prior to Earth curve, it's perfectly acceptable, even though the maths doesn't have it in it. It's amazing.
Well, I just would like to...
No coincidence that that's the same guy that came here and in response to the Black Swan wanted to tell us how, oh, you guys forgot about optics.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
What a clown. We forgot about it. Oh, right. And your calculator didn't. It's our argument, bonehead. Anyway, Sleeping Warrior. Any evidence? Sleeping Warrior. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Oh, no, that's not the one I wanted. No, they just assume that there's a gravitational field because they haven't got they hadn't discovered relative density back then. They just calculated the effect. So they just assumed that gravity was pulling. And then Einstein realized it wasn't pulling, so he changed it. And since then it's been accelerating upwards. But ultimately they didn't know about relative density. But now we have relative density and we don't have to assume that Earth's moving or that pulling anything. And it's just a medium, innit? So no, there's no evidence for gravitation. It's been superseded.
Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
That's not the one I wanted either.
Well, then you've missed it. What did you want? But is there any viable hypotheses that's cropped up in the meantime? Let's not brush over this very important housekeeping question.
No, there's no experimental application for, what is it, Scientology, cosmology, reflexology.
Reflexology.
Well, who was the guy the other day that came in here said that two stars colliding and they observed these things? Wasn't he talking about?
You're saying astrophysicists have observed that? Yes, that's correct. But then we looked up the timeline in terms of their assertion.
And what was the timeline?
Adam, can you remember what the timeline was?
Yeah, it was 130,000 years to slow down from 6 hours to 5. After that, then we might start to see the things that they're hoping to detect in terms of production of gravitational waves, if humanity's lucky enough to survive that long. I think it was there.
Wow.
Wow.
And how do they believe this? I don't get it. I'm lost.
Because you put cool theme music in the background, like Star Wars or something. It's gotta be.
Can we go back to Earth curve?
I think it's the snacks in the back.
Earth Earth curve. It's 1/4 to the hour. You think Earth curve's the first question?
Anthony, that was the first one, Anthony.
You know that's the first question, right?
I must have missed it because I got in
Yeah.
5 minutes late. I'm blaming chocolate.
Yeah, you
No,
actually
I'm
came in
blaming you.
asking what was going on, and we are actually after just asking or just answering that question.
Oh, bastard. Let's go back to it quick.
No,
to raise awareness.
No way. Joking, right? No, I'm only kidding. Any evidence of Earth
You'll have
curve?
to come tomorrow.
Any
You got to come in 120,000 years.
Let's try once more.
Next time, don't be late.
Right, again.
Anthony, a break. Stop.
Any?
Yeah, come on. Let me be quick because
Well,
this
let me
is
ask the
worth it,
question.
actually.
Can I ask the question? Any evidence of a physical geometric spheroid horizon, formerly known as Earth curvature?
Yes, Wolfie 6020's got a claim. Oh, this is good. Nathan, share my screen if you would.
Yeah, okay, you're on.
All right, so Wolfie 6020, what we need to do is not go to Wolfie's, but go to this guy called Kelsey. Typical American name, right? He's a 747 pilot, and he claims that he's prepared to, and he's allowed to, charter out his jet for private expedition, and we can go anywhere we want, right? Now, when I say we, I mean like people, not necessarily flat Earth or blurthers. Like it's anybody. And obviously, I remind myself of Greater Sapien because Greater Sapien had what do you call it? A GoFundMe for 20 grand, where he wanted to do a rotation flight, an Earth flight over the southern poles. But obviously, it never happened because we know it can't happen. So we've got this guy called Kelsey, who's a pilot, claiming that we can charter a plane. We've got Greater Sapien, who's got the cash to do it because he never demonstrated that he sent the money anywhere, as far as I'm aware. So we've got Kelsey as the pilot, we've got Wolfie as the other pilot, the co-pilot, and we've got paid for by Greater Sapien. And what we can do is we can charter this guy's plane to fly from anywhere he says, anywhere we want. So we can go to South America. So let's just pull up Google Earth, wherever it's gone. There it is. Pull this up. Now look at this. So I've done the maths and everything. I've worked it all out. So we can fly from the Falkland Islands, which is like, apparently it's English territory, you know, because it's close proximity to England. It makes sense that it's ours and not Argentina's. But anyway, we can basically fly due south, and the angle there is like south. So if I pull the ruler across here, you can see that it's basically 178 degrees. And what we'll do then is we'll travel straight over Antarctica, back out the other side, and it'll bring us out somewhere around Perth. Right, and I've worked it out. It says it's about 10,600 kilometers, right? So I've worked out that if we do it in his plane, the range of a 747 is 13,000 kilometers, and the total flight distance is only 10, so it's easily doable. It's got a passenger carrying capacity of about, I don't know, X amount of hundreds. So all these ball earthers can demonstrate their claim now, can't they? Because it's their claim that you can fly over the South Pole, get back up the other side, and get out to Perth. So let's encourage this guy called Kelsey, who thinks that he lives on a sphere. Let's encourage him to get his plane filled with ball earthers, particularly Wolfie, and demonstrate that he can go south. Now, obviously, we need a couple of people in the southern half of the world, so Iru Landucci would be one of them. But this guy's got the money. This guy's going to fly it, and obviously, Wolfie's a pilot.
Stop.
So between the three of them, we should be able to get some evidence that you can do a southern rotation or whatever. But what I do want to point out as well is in the flight planning stage, they're going to have to make an adjustment, aren't they? Because if I zoom this back out, the flight duration for that distance is about 18 hours, right? But obviously, if you take off in the Falkland Islands and if the Earth is supposed to be rotated underneath you as you go along your journey, 17 hours later, that Falkland, the position of the Earth is going to be something like that. It's going to be in that order, right? So they're going to have to compensate for that with their flight path, aren't they? Because otherwise they're not going to land in Perth. They're going to land in Brisbane instead. But nonetheless, it's worth demonstrating that they can't do it because we all know they're not going to be able to do it.
Hold on.
So this guy's going to fail.
Hold on. Right. How does this prove a sphere?
Well, if we go with the map that we don't encourage, but whatever, you can't do a south rotation thing, can you, on their model? But you could only do it on our model if it was much further.
What?
And there's enough fuel left over for them to.
Sorry. What? How does it prove a sphere? If we assume their model, how did you start with?
Yeah. So let's pull this back up. So
Hold on. So, let's say somebody achieves flying over Antarctica. Are you telling me that upon achieving this feat, whether or not it's possible, I couldn't care less, you're saying that you have to beg the question of Earth being a sphere for this to make sense.
Well, if they head south and then they go over the south rotation point and then they come back up the other side, me personally, I don't see how that would be explained on a plane, because like this part of the world is in the other corner, isn't it? It's not a straight line to them.
Why not? How do you know?
I don't know, but I don't think that this flight's possible on a ball. So forget about whether it's flat or not. Let's see if the flight can be done on a ball.
What do you mean it's done on a ball?
It's going to be done on flat Earth.
You're saying, can it be done if I assume a ball? Well, if you do or you don't achieve the outcome, all you're doing is affirming the consequent with this claim to be ball Earth proof. Let's just put it a different way, just so you can, because I can tell you're stuck on the idea of modelling it as a sphere and then seeing how it plays out. Let's say, for the sake of argument, I plot the azimuthal equidistant projection which is from centre out at a particular point, and you can plot it from anywhere. It'll still give you the same result. You don't have to start it with the North Pole at the centre point, which is all the most commonly depicted azimuthal equidistant projection is presented as. It just happens to be North Pole centric. But you can have it South Pole centric. Let's say, for the sake of argument, I put up, I'm not going to do it, I'm too lazy, but if I put up a South centric azimuthal equidistant projection, right, and it shows that there is a straight line path over this claimed to be continental surface called Antarctica, between the Falklands and Oz, right? There you go. There you go. Bring it up. That's precisely what I'm describing. Oh, it's gone back to the original. There we go. That's the one. That's south-based. You can only just see it on screen. Can you move it to the left? Can you get it more central? Because it's just off screen on mine. There we go. Perfect. So, correct me if I'm wrong. Where's the Falklands on there? I can't quite make it out. There it is at the bottom right. You want to put your mouse over the Falklands?
There.
So if you made that journey, and it was possible because this particular part of the map actually was the layout, yeah, just happened to match how a south-centric azimuthal equidistant projection laid the land out. How's this going to prove a sphere again, Anthony? If this happened to be the layout, just this one section. I'm not saying the rest of it's laid out like this is presented, but if it was, this particular bit happened to be the way it was, you're saying that that journey would prove a sphere then?
Well, you'd have to have a transient map, wouldn't you? Because the map would have to continuously change to account for what it's like in the north, because they can't both be correct, can they?
No. And how many maps do you think we've got? Thousands. I don't know which one's right. I'm just saying. The only way this turns into a globe proof is if you affirm the consequent. If the Earth's a sphere, then a journey from the Falklands to Oz will be taking place by going underneath the bottom of a sphere. Therefore, the Earth's a sphere. It's if P, then Q, therefore P. It's an affirming the consequent with an assumption of sphere at the beginning. In other words, this proves nothing. So rather than saying, let's burn our way through a load of jet fuel to do this journey, and whether it can or can't be done is irrelevant. Because to have it as a global proof,
would you get in a plane with that Joe Biden looking pilot? I wouldn't.
Well, I know he's angry, but it's not his fault he's angry. He has it shaved.
Just get to the end of the point.
The other point on this, if I could, Nathan, is
I haven't quite
the converse is not true. You can't necessarily say, well, if I fly from here to there, go over a load of ice, it disproves the flat Earth model, because as you're alluding to there, they're azimuthal projections of the globe. They're not a realistic thing. They're a projection of the globe spread out, hence why they look so perverse at the extremes on the north and south hemisphere projections, which is how you're viewing it there. So it doesn't disprove the shape of or the impossibility of flying from here to there and crossing over a large icy landmass. So if you achieve that, that doesn't even then disprove or prove anything. It just, if anything, shows that you have to fly over ice from there to there. Now, the ball model would say in the azimuthal projection, the flat projection, it would have to be something like 14,000 miles. And that would be the baller's point of disproof. Well, my point is that's based on an azimuthal ball projection of a flat Earth, not any map that we have actually that's ever been created of that track.
There is another way to interpret this, though.
Before we get into another way of interpreting it, I
let's
want
just
to make it
acknowledge.
absolutely clear. The only way this turns into a sphere Earth proof is if you affirm the consequent. Assume your outcome, say the Earth's a sphere, say that this journey can only take place on a sphere, and because the journey has taken place, if it took place, therefore the Earth's a sphere. In other words, this is just a means to affirm the consequent. With that, I'm going to say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Also, below this video, there is a link to get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either Premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video. Oh, someone smashed the super chat just before the end. Let's just check. No. See you all in the next video.